Okay, hello everybody, 5 o'clock. Thank you so much for coming. This is the public information meeting for the 2024 Sump Pump Inspection Program. My name is Angie Coles with WHKS Engineers. We prepared a presentation that goes over the highlights of the program, what to expect, why it's important, and the next steps. And we've got a whole bunch of information here. Feel free to jump in with questions at any time. Folks online as well, jump in if you have any questions, and we'll also have time for questions at the end. And all the information here will be available online, or just give me a call and we can get a copy emailed to you. So with that, again, I work with WHKS Engineers. We're an engineering firm headquartered in Mason City. I'm from the Ames office. We work on a variety of municipal projects. We're working for the city of Boone on this project. I'm the water and wastewater practice area lead for our company. And we have assisted over 50 communities with sump pump inspection programs similar to this one. And we're in the 6th year for the city of Boone here. Okay, so our objectives tonight, first discuss why a sump pump program has been going on and is important, discuss the details and the next steps. And our first diagram here tonight is a map or an image from the EPA. It says, what is I&I? Inflow and infiltration. And this is a diagram that, in a nutshell, is showing sewer systems in a city. The sanitary sewer system is green pipes, and that is designed to convey our dirty wastewater from our homes and our businesses, take that to the sewage treatment plant where it goes through biological, mechanical, and chemical processes to clean it before it gets discharged to the river. There's also a separate system called the storm sewer system that takes rainwater and groundwater, and that system's goal is to get that water basically away as soon as possible. It does not go through the same cleansing and treatment steps. And in an ideal world, those two systems are separate because they serve separate purposes. If they cross over, we sometimes get really negative implications, which is basement backups, because we get too much clean water in the sanitary sewer system. Nobody wants this to occur. So where does excessive clean water get into the sanitary sewer system and lead to backups like that? It can come from a variety of places. So this is an image that has a lot going on, but it shows a diagram of a house and its plumbing and its sewer service lateral going out to a public sewer main. And I've got a bunch of things circled on here: foundation drains, leaky laterals, catch basins, pipe defects, leaky manholes. The point of this is it's a complicated system, and it's composed of private elements that are in our homes and public elements, the pipes and manholes in the streets. Clear water can come from all of these places. So it's not one single place. It's coming in from a lot of different spots. The key is getting it out so that the system can perform the way it is designed to and not lead to backups and overloads. So inflow and infiltration, what it does to the sanitary sewer system. Diagram that shows rainfall on the top and flow at the treatment plant at the bottom. And what you can see is that our sanitary flows are basically the same. It's a little bit below the screen for the folks here, but there's a baseline flow. Every day, normal flushing, washing activities produces about the same amount of wastewater. But if it rains, all of a sudden that sewer flow spikes up. That's that spike called the inflow spike, and it corresponds to the larger blue bar of rainfall. So that's evidence that clear water, rainwater, is getting into the sanitary sewer system, causing flows to spike, and it doesn't need to be. So these flows at the top are actual Boone flows. Your average dry weather flow, like everyday flow, is about 2.1 million gallons per day. Average wet weather flow, which is spring rainy weather, but not during an actual rain event, is about 7 million gallons per day. Peak instantaneous wet weather, that spike that can occur, has gotten as high as 24.6. So that's quite a high spike. And that's showing that there has been clear water getting in. And that is the reason that this program is so important. Get that water out of the sewer system. So this is a graph that shows rainfall on the top and wastewater treatment flow from the first year of this program, 2019. And it goes from March of 2019 to November of 2019. And first, you can see a very clear pattern where there's rainfall events, particularly in the June and July timeframe. You see spikes at the treatment plant. And then also the program and inspections, and people started making corrections to their sump pumps during the summer and fall of this year. You can see that towards the end, October, November, we also had rain events, but not nearly as high a spike at the wastewater treatment plant, right? So that's good. There are multiple causes for that, including drier weather towards the fall season, but it's also important to acknowledge that the first year, the corrections that people made to get their sump pumps and other clear water out of the system made a difference at the plant. So that's why it keeps going year after year. The bang for your buck. This is a slide we put together to show out of all the sources where clear water can come into the sanitary sewer system, which ones are the cheapest and easiest to get the most water out. Number one is sump pumps, and I'll give you a lot of reasons why. Number two, smoke and dye testing of the public system, which is work that the city can do. The manhole repairs, onwards and downwards. And as you get to the bottom of this, you get more and more expensive when you start digging up pipes, which involves digging up streets in order to upsize them. The city put in a brand new trunk main, several years back. That was a major infrastructure project. You don't want to have to do that if you don't have to. Upsizing the wastewater treatment plant, millions of dollars if you have to do that, because every single process gets affected by flows. So the key is, in terms of keeping the costs low so the sewer rates stay low, try to get as much water out of the system as you can up on the top of that chart. And that's why we're here tonight. So example flow removal and costs from the public sector versus the private sector. Question can be raised, okay, why are we focusing on sump pumps instead of just focusing on the public side, the pipes and the manholes in the streets? The reason for that is entirely to do for bang for your buck. On the left, this is a pie chart from a pilot study that was conducted in Rochester, Minnesota in 2008, which is a while back now, I do admit, but it was a very thorough and detailed study, and it documented all the sources of I&I coming into the system, and it found about 2/3 of them were from public sources, pipes and manholes, about 1/3 was from private. But when you looked at the price point to remove the I&I from those two types of sources, it was overwhelmingly more expensive to get it out of the public side. Why? Because you are dealing with major infrastructure projects for the most part, digging, upsizing things, whereas taking some of that clear water out on the private side can be relatively inexpensive. Why a sump pump program? Okay, large scale down to a very personal scale. A few pumps on your block can make a big difference. So a couple years back, we went to Menards and just looked at the shelf, looking at what size of sump pumps were available. And you generally find that anywhere between 20 gallons a minute to 100 gallons a minute are the sizes available for people to purchase. Okay, so a typical 8-inch sewer, which is the size of sanitary sewer running down most of our streets that serve us, has a capacity of 350 gallons a minute. So it doesn't take much to do the math and understand that if we have as few as 4 sump pumps that are hooked up to the sanitary sewer on our block, that can take up the entire capacity of that sanitary sewer, leaving no room for the actual sewage that needs to get in. So a few pumps can make a big difference on our very local blocks, as well as making an impact on the city collection system as a whole. Perspective, so out of the thousands of inspections that we've assisted with for the communities that we serve, people tend to average about a 5 to 10% violation rate, which means about 5 to 10% of the homes have some clear water going in, connected into the sanitary system that they need to remove. So it doesn't sound like a lot, but if you think of that, if we had 5% violation rate on this year's area alone, which is about 500 buildings, and we say, okay, if we have a medium-sized sump pump, and after it rains, maybe it turns on and off for an average of 8 hours over a 24-hour period, you might produce 8% of the entire plant capacity just through rainwater alone in this one area. Okay, makes a big difference. And I will tell you that the actual rate is higher than 5%. Average had been about 17% within the city. Last year's area was higher than that. So there are definite cross connections, and just the sheer number of them are making a difference. Okay. So again, we know that the jump in flows is evidence that clear water is getting into the sanitary system. We know that the sources are spread, and each source is important to tackle. But in particular, making sure that the sump pumps and other easy or low-hanging fruit is taken care of benefits everybody because it keeps your sewer rates low. It reduces backups, protects health, and reduces costs. Okay. So I mentioned this is the 6th year. This is a map of the city and the years that the program areas were completed. And the idea is that eventually everybody will be covered in an inspection area. So this is this year's area on the eastern central part. Everyone here and online has gotten a letter looking similar to this. So thank you very much for coming. Really appreciate it. The next step will be getting a letter that looks a lot like that, but it asks you to schedule an appointment. And I'll run through the steps here. The keys here are scheduling is easy. Everything is scheduled. We will never do a door-to-door knocking on doors asking you to come into anybody's houses. I want you to know that up front because privacy and security is important to us. Everything is scheduled ahead of time. The scheduling is fast and easy. We'll have a phone number that's available to call. And also, if you prefer to go online and see the whole calendar and pick a time slot yourself, please feel free to do that. The instructions will be in the letter that you will receive. And depending on where you're at in the area, expect to get that letter either next week or in about 3 weeks. So pretty soon here. And the first inspection slot opening up is going to be on July 18th. And that will run generally varying time frames from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Monday through Friday. So pick a time that works for you according to the instructions in the letter. If you want to, when you get that letter, if you'd like to go online and pick your own time, it's going to be the project website is boonsump.com, which the instructions will be in the letter, and you'll see a calendar similar to this where you can pick a day and pick a time that suits your schedule. Okay, so what is that inspection? Okay, so the point of this is every home that's connected to the sewer needs to just have verification that there's no clear water coming into the sanitary system. So that's done by an inspection appointment, typically under 15 minutes. Many are done in under 5. We're looking at 5 specific things, and that's it. I want to be really clear on that. We're not there to look at anything else, no trophies, no squirrels, no nothing, just these things, and we're out. It's looking at the sump pump. We're looking at whether there is a beaver drain system, which I'll have a photo of that, but that's like a border baseboard that runs around some basements, running traps. Okay, then outside the roof and gutters, just to make sure that they run to the surface or storm sewer system, and any other exterior drains, which are rare, but they can occur. All we ask is that an adult be present. Doesn't have to be the owner of the house. We just need an adult present. Then we sign it, give you the option to sign if you like. And then if there needs to be a plumbing correction made, we'll tell you right then and there on the spot and give you instructions on how to do that. This is the form. This runs through the things I just described. It's available for anybody to take a look at or get a copy at City Hall. Also, you can call us. We'll email you a copy. Full transparency, this is exactly what we're looking for. Since this is a little hard to read, I'll just go through and list the items that are on here. It says owner and address, date of the inspection, date of construction if known, and if you have a history of backups and flooding. The reason we're asking for that, which is optional information, is if you do have a history, tell us, and then we can map that and identify hotspots. And maybe there's an issue with the sewer there that multiple people are experiencing, but nobody knew about. So we can help get that addressed. Then, does the building have exterior grading sloping toward the building, roof drains that go into the ground, basement, a seepage collection or beaver system, and a sump pit? And if any of those are yes, then there's follow-up questions to ask whether it's properly connected to go outside or if it's improperly connected to go to the sanitary system. Any other comments? If you give us permission, we'll take pictures of the sump pump and one of the outside. That's just so our records can stay clean and we can make sure we have all the photos linked up to the right house. That's optional. And then a diagram where we just sketch out the real basics of where piping is going, and then signing, the inspector signs, the occupant signs if you want to. And then on the part B on the second page is if there needs to be a follow-up after corrections are made. That's just an acknowledgement that, okay, the corrections were made, we're good, we're done. Okay. Like I said, this form is available at City Hall anytime, and give us a call. We can send you a copy. Does not have to be us that do this. You can also hire a private plumber to do the same inspection and turn it in. That's equally good. Okay. Like I say, we take everybody's security really important. So one of the things we do is make sure that when we show up, we are in full logoed apparel with identification, so you know who we are. Nobody's impersonating us. You'll see people with WHKS shirts and or hats. We also have an identification badge like this. We also have logos on our vehicles. Okay, so there should be absolutely no question about who we are when we show up. And if there ever were to be, give us a call, give the city a call. I don't think this has come up here in Boone ever, but yeah. Just want everyone to feel comfortable since we're asking to come into your home and check out the basement. So right now I've got a couple pictures showing examples of improper plumbing versus proper plumbing. Okay, and this is the most common list of things. A lot of these are very easy to take care of yourself. These are DIY projects if you'd like them to be, or you could hire a plumber if you felt more comfortable that way. So first one on the left is a picture of a sump pump, and it's got rigid PVC piping that's directed to the outside. That's a proper installation. That's good. On the image on the right is a flex hose to the drain. So there's two things wrong with that. One is it's discharging directly to the floor drain, which is on the left-hand edge of that photo. That's what we don't want, because that's putting that groundwater into the sanitary system and overloading it. The second issue with that is it's a flexible hose inside the house. It's not allowed by plumbing code. So the way to fix that is just to take off that flexible black tubing and install a rigid PVC glue pipe to the outside. You're good to go. Next set of images are very similar. On the left, rigid PVC pipe that has been freshly glued. You can see the purple primer there. Not a problem. I don't care if it was glued 5 minutes before we got there. The point is it's done, it passes, it's great. On the right, the flex hose to the outside. So it's going to the outside, which is great, but since it's a garden hose that doesn't meet plumbing code, that makes it improper. The way to fix that is just take out that garden hose and make it go through a rigid PVC pipe that you put in, and it's good to go. Okay. Other examples that are less common, but people get a chuckle out of these. Flex hose to the sanitary via the stool that is nearby. That's just a no. Going to the sanitary, and yeah, nobody wants to see that. All right, this is an example of beaver drain situation, and this is a little bit hard to see because of the color, but there are beaver drains on the left and the right. And again, this is a baseboard that gets glued in to collect seepage that comes in from the block wall. Typical in a very specific era of homes, kind of from the 1950s, 60s, and early 70s, where the basements were finished enough that people wanted to control that seepage, but not yet new enough to have sump pumps put in. Don't see a lot of these in town here, but if you did happen to have one, an example on the left where it's collecting that water and then putting it into a sump pit, which is then pumped out. That's perfect. That's great. And then on the image on the right is someone has put that beaver drain type system in, discharging into the floor drain, which is incorrect because it's going to the sanitary. So the fix there would be to move that beaver drain spot and put in a sump pit so that it can discharge outside. Example, sometimes people say, what if I have a power failure and my sump pump fails? I really don't want to flood my basement. So we've seen this where one person has happened to be a city administrator in a different city, actually channeled a bypass pipe from the sump pit to the floor drain and then mortared it over, thinking, okay, if it ever floods, it'll go into the sanitary sewer. Unfortunately, that's not okay because that's another direct connection. All the fix that was necessary there was to put a little bit of hydraulic cement or patching material in that pipe so that there was no longer a direct connection. I'll tell you, there are a number of backup systems available for folks if they're concerned about power outages. The previous photo on the left had a picture of a battery backup that's available. There's also ones that are served on water pressure. So if you're concerned about that, put in a backup system. There's no need to have an overflow to the sanitary. Okay. Running pits. This is very, very common. They might be square or they might be circular. So if you have one of these, I would not be surprised. What the idea here is, when they built these houses, they ran the drain tiles around the perimeter and the service lateral into a common pit, usually in the basement, usually has a manhole cover over it. Okay, that is a direct connection, and that is not allowed to exist anymore. Luckily, the fix to that is very straightforward. Put a little cement in the part where it goes to the sanitary, and you can put in a pump, make the pump go outside, and then that is compliant. Roof drains. So roof drains need to convey that rainwater somewhere outside, whether it's to the ground or onto the storm sewer system. And the vast majority of roof drains do. We do end up in some situations, particularly in downtown, where some of the roof drains were going down into the ground and then into the sanitary. So their photo on the left is one of those examples where the roof drain was going into the ground and tied into the sanitary. It was smoked. It's smoking because when we do the smoke test of the public sanitary system, which typically happens in August, the smoke that is in the sanitary was coming up, and we could see that connection. On the right, that's just a regular rain downspout directing onto the ground. So it's not great that it's discharging right by the edge of the building, but it is proper. Perfectly fine from a I&I perspective to do that. Discharge options for the sump pump specifically. Get some questions about, okay, where do I have to take this water? The only thing that you have to do is get it outside. Once you get it outside, there's a lot of flexibility there in the options. The most common is to, once you have it outside, you can transition to a flexible black hose, the type you get at Menards or similar, and just run it to some point on the lawn. That works great in a lot of situations. I had a question about, can we run it into the gutter? Yes, you can now. What you would do is bury that hose until it gets right to the curb and then have a little pop-up where it can dump into the gutter. So make sure it doesn't go over the sidewalk or cause a nuisance. You go bury it until it gets to the curb, pop it up, and do that. Sometimes he's hit by snowplows. Sometimes you have to replace them because of that, but it's an option that's available. If you bury piping, because we have freezing and thawing weather, I do recommend an air gap. And so these photos are examples of air gap in that piping. These are also easily available at any hardware store, and they're all basically the same thing. What it is it's giving you an ability to disconnect that piping if there's any freezing and thawing and fix it so that it doesn't back up and burst pipes. You'll also notice there's screens on these air gaps, which help keep ground squirrels out of there too. How you do that, these images give you an idea that there's a lot of different ways to do that. You're basically taking that hard piping, and once it gets out of the house, putting in an air gap with a screen around it, and then it dumps into the buried piping, which takes it the rest of the way out. Okay, discharge options. Sump pump going through a hard pipe to the outside. They have met the rule that's legal because it's hard pipe to the outside, but not a great idea if I were the owner of that building, because what are they doing? They're just pushing that groundwater right to the outside, and it's running right back down that foundation wall and getting recycled a bunch of times, right? So good drainage practices are always get the water at least 4 feet away from the foundation. It's not required, but as a building owner, you want to think through some of those things. If you have any cross connections that need to be corrected, when we're there, we'll give you diagrams that look like these, explaining the options and exactly what these configurations look like. So here's examples of what those look like. We'll give you printed copies. This is one of a proper connection that would show a sump pump with rigid PVC piping going up and out with a check valve, and then it's got an air gap or elbow once it gets outside, and then runs in a flexible tube out to the outside. Okay. And again, sometimes there's a storm sewer system or subdrain to the storm sewer system that's available in some blocks. This is a great option if it's available because it can allow you to bury that discharge pipe and then send it to the public storm sewer system, and it doesn't have to discharge onto your yard. We generally have maps of the storm sewer system. So if this is something you're interested in, you can talk specifics when we're there. And okay, now we're into the inspection timeline. We are here tonight, July 9th. Like I say, you guys are going to start getting letters as early as next week. Folks in other areas of this inspection zone will get them in 3 weeks' time, and then we will follow up throughout the fall. Okay. So I've covered all of the Private sector, meaning our private buildings so far. Just want to briefly touch on the public collection side of things. Like I say, Clearwater comes in from a lot of different spaces. So just to let you know, city's also tackling it on the public side through smoke and dye testing and manhole inspections. Smoke testing is a process where we have smoke candles that we push non-toxic, like non-staining white smoke into the sanitary sewage system when the ground is really hot and dry, August weather, and we put a blower on it, and we're trying to blow that smoke back through, looking for cracks in the pipes and cracks in the ground. It's a really cool process. You'll see us out there. I think this year you're scheduled to be out there August 5th through August 8th, weather permitting. There will be public notifications. You'll see a door hanger beforehand as well. The only thing you need to do is think of, if you have any unused dry traps in the basement, pour a gallon of water in those before that testing week, because that'll make sure your traps are full and prevent any smoke coming into the house. So if all your traps are functioning properly, you will not notice a thing inside. This is purely an outdoor activity. Then manhole inspections is the other part of this. You know that every block has a manhole on the public sewer mains, and manholes can be a source of inflow and infiltration. And so we will be going through and inspecting each one, looking for cracks or other defects, and then getting those fixed up as well. Public info is really important throughout this entire program. The theme is always about education, because once folks realize, you know, what I&I does to the system and the impacts and to the sewer rates and how to fix it, I think, you know, everyone wants to do the right thing and just clear that up. So there's usually a string of public information, making sure that people are aware of the program and why. Sometimes there's stuff on Facebook. We do monitor that, and there tends to be a lot of factually incorrect stuff sometimes that needs to be responded to. I would say if you ever have any questions about anything specific on the program, what it's requiring, what you need to do, give us a call, give Waylon a call. I'm more than happy to talk it through and explain whatever you need to there. Okay. Questions? It's the end of my prepared materials. Any questions? Yes, sir.
Okay, like in the winter time, I got 2 stuff. Sidewalk down to the curb. Say November, March. Once every 2 weeks. But out there, I run it out. Storm sewer. Sidewalks here, handicap. Water out, not just in my place, the other places, out in the street, out in the grass now. For this. If someone gets hurt, especially if it's out in the street.
Sure. Okay. So the question is, after we take the sump pump discharge to the street.
Lawyers ever looked into this? Pretty soon slime builds up. Once a week, I go out there and try to scrape it all off where the sidewalk is. Water out there in the wintertime, it starts freezing. The whole area. Sheet ice there. I mean, it's a sheet ice there a lot of times. But it's something up.
Yeah, so your concern is adding to that ice problem on sidewalks and streets and who's liable.
Ice there when there probably really shouldn't.
Right. So this is a great question. First off, make sure that the sump pump water is not going over the sidewalk and adding to that issue, because people do need to maintain their sidewalks. Okay.
Well, see, I can disconnect it once it gets out of the house. So I'm afraid it'll freeze and not go out the street, and I run a corrugated hose out there in the yard. Say you get a big thaw and everything, it really starts melting. Slant from my house down to the, now, that's gonna pour down on the sidewalk.
Yes.
Who's liable?
So as long as you're not adding to the problem, if you're getting it out to the street, then that is basically a city issue to take care of. So we understand that that's gonna be an issue because everyone's water needs to go somewhere, right? So the idea here is looking for, get it out first, solve the known problem, which is basement backups, which is definitely happening, and sewer problems. Get the water out, and then if there needs to be street improvements, storm improvements to get that water and fix problem areas, that can go into the city's budget to be improved.
The reason I'm saying this right now, right before the sidewalk does come out from the street. That's nothing up there. I mean, it'll go down along the gutter about like this. When it gets right to the sidewalk, there's a pool this big. I mean, it's city street where that pool.
Yeah.
And then it does build. That's why, you know, once a week, I'm more than them and everything else. Yeah, we know that's all the way that way.
Yeah, I think that is such a specific area. Let's talk after the meeting, specific and drill with that. Yeah, 'cause that's going beyond kind of
But
general information.
Slips, falls. City side, really, the city has kind of control of parking and everything else.
Yeah.
You know, you're bringing on liability if you get a lot of rain out. Sidewalk, you know.
Situations with a complaint based, you know, you notice ice or anything out there, call City Hall Public Works Office. My secretary will take a note message. We'll put salt on it. We try to keep salt on some of these
Well, in
areas.
the winter, I even
Yeah.
put salt on it.
I do
Matter
have
of fact, I use salt on that swine. It's easier to.
well, that it will, salt will kill the bacteria in the slime. I do have a program together for putting sump pumps into storm sewer collectors if they're available in that area. Again, we work off a complaint based areas, so the worst ones have been combated first. Annually, we're putting about $30,000 a year into putting sump pumps, troublesome sump pumps that are in areas like you're describing into storm sewers and putting extensions on the storm sewers. And so I'm working towards that. Some of the other things that we do is about $175,000 a year we're putting into sanitary sewer lining of the pipes, basically putting a liner inside the pipes where all the cracks, the infiltration, that's eliminating the infiltration there. We've been doing about $20,000 a year in manhole lining now, trying to take care of some of these other things. And so our efforts, we're putting pretty good efforts for. She mentioned the trunk line process that we did in 2008, 2009. The city had to put about $18 million worth of new trunk line in just to handle more water. And we still have to treat this clean water. It's the same cost to treat that clean water as it is the dirty water because it's a process that it has to go through. So removing this stuff is basically the best situation. So some of the money we're saving on treatment, we're starting to put into developing more sump pump lines and storm sewer lines. And if there's a location where there's an intake near and it can be diverted towards that through the parking or to the grass, I've got contractors that I've been hiring to do that and get it out of the street again. So
Well, like in the winter time, I mean, I did think it. I put a rubber. . sidewalk.
Yeah.
I'm saying you get a lot of water. It's a sidewalk.
Well, on a situation, I mean, yeah, we deal with that everywhere. All the snow piles uptown, they start to melt. We get rivers running down streets and across sidewalks and stuff, but
I mean, it's been that way.
Yeah.
There is possibly a liability there, so. It's just in my place, other people, right, sidewalks and everything. I got mine right all the way up the street.
We don't have a sump pump and like. Sat on a hill and it did never have any water in it, because the air conditioning. If you put a sump pump in, if you have a home like that.
No, and I'm gonna repeat the question for
Okay.
folks online. So the question is, if you have a home that does not have a sump pump, do you have to put one in? If there's no other cross connections? No, you do
Okay.
not.
But if you have like that beaver dam system that's draining in, you have to get one.
Yes.
You can get one.
Yep, so a beaver drain system that has been in place, that is there collecting seepage and it's going into the floor drain, because there's effort to collect that
You're
water,
right.
yep, you'd have to put a pit in. But that segues into a great clarification, so air conditioner, condensate, furnace condensate, that can go into the floor drain, because it's just a couple drops and it's meant to do
Because
that.
my friend has a house that doesn't have a sump pump, he lives in the same neighborhood as I do. He's wondering if
as long as there's no, like, the flowing trap example that we showed, that is a pit there that's actually, it's a pit collecting water that's going into the sanitary.
our neighbor's dry, it might not stop here. Unless they're here.
But
Even
yes,
in the rainy season.
as long as there's no other examples like that, then
Okay, we had a question before the meeting, for folks online about, what if we have a sump pump and it's got piping that goes outside and to the sanitary and we can pick and choose? That's called a winter summer valve, so it's not allowed to go to the sanitary. It can only go to the outdoors. Luckily, the fix is very simple. If you have that situation, just cut off the piece of pipe that's going to the sanitary and glue a cap on it. Okay, well, in that case, so like I say, the copy of this meeting is available, public information, anytime. Feel free to call or email us. My email and office number up there. I've got cards up here. Open book. Happy to talk to you folks. And everyone, thank you for coming. Really appreciate it. So, all right. Anybody online with any questions?
No, they
Okay.
are locked.
Cool. Thanks, guys.